Good morning. Today we're going to finish chapter 18 of the book of John. And yesterday Jesus had been arrested. They took him to Annas, who it says was the high priest, the father of the high priest Caiaphas. But verse 19, as we start today, it says the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. And so, I guess when I look at this, then it almost sounds like Caiaphas is the high priest, Annas is the high priest. But anyway, Annas is questioning Jesus, and Jesus said, "What have I done? I've taught openly in the temple always. I've never done anything in secret. I taught in the synagogues and in the temple where all the Jews come together. I've done nothing in secret. Why do you ask these things?" And because they were asking him about his teaching. Well, was his teaching wrong? No. So many times, I just always remember that when he was 12, that they were astonished at his wisdom and understanding. And that's why the people were listening now, because of his wisdom, his understanding, his communication, and, just the way he was coming across. And he said, ask those who heard what I said, if I said anything wrong. And when he said this, when he replied then to Annas, it says one of the police officers struck him. And Jesus says, "Why did you strike me? If I've done something wrong, that's fine, but what have I done that you struck me?" And after that, then it says that Annas sends him bound to Caiaphas the high priest. To Caiaphas the high priest. So, I don't really understand in some ways why Annas, who was a former high priest and the father of the current high priest, why did they bring him there to begin with? Maybe because he was one of the elders, one of the more respected people. Too many people were questioning Jesus and everything. But and in John's gospel, we don't really have any questioning by Caiaphas, but right after they send him to Caiaphas bound, then we have Peter's two final denials of Jesus in verses 25 through 27. And then verse 28, they took him from Caiaphas to Pilate's headquarters. And so, and this now is early morning when they bring him to Caiaphas's headquarters, to Pilate's headquarters rather. And so he's been being questioned, and he's been bound and detained, most of the night. What time was it when he was arrested? It was after dark. It was after they had eaten and after he'd been in the garden praying. They came with torches and weapons to arrest him. And Jesus had been being questioned overnight. So they bring him to Pilate's headquarters early in the morning. And it says that the religious leaders didn't go into the courtyard of Pilate's area because they would be defiled and wouldn't be able to observe the Passover. Doesn't their crucifixion of Jesus defile them a whole lot more than going into, Pilate's headquarters room, the courtyard? How did they communicate with Pilate if they didn't, But it's just some of what they did it really seems odd to me. So Pilate goes out and says, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" And they just say, if he wasn't a criminal, why would we bring him? They don't have any evidence that they're giving to Pilate. And Pilate said, "Well, then take him yourself and judge him." And they say, "We don't have the authority to put anyone to death." So they weren't just looking to extradite Jesus. They weren't just looking to have Jesus put in jail. They wanted him dead. They wanted him out of their way, out of their hair, because he was causing them too much heartache, too many problems. Too many people were listening to Jesus and wondering, have we been following the wrong things? Have we been doing things wrong? And, Jesus had good news for them. And that's what the word gospel means, is good news. So Pilate then went back into his headquarters and talked to Jesus, asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus said, "Do you ask for yourself on your own because you are wondering, or are you asking because others have told you about me?" And, and Pilate, I'm not a Jew. Why would I have any concern? Why would you concern me at all? Is basically kind of what Pilate says, But what have you done that have you stirred people up so much? Are you a king? And Jesus' response is, "My kingdom is not of this world." And so then Pilate says, "So you are a king." So Jesus admits to Pilate, he says, "My kingdom is not of this world." And Pilate, I'm sure, doesn't really understand that either, because what other world is there? Is he talking about a foreign land? No. But so Jesus says to Pilate, "You say I am a king, and for this I was born. For this I was born, to testify to the truth," Jesus says. And then Pilate asks that simple question, what is truth? And that's, what is truth? That's such a seemingly simple question, but yet in our world today, what is truth? There are so many things that we are told that are untruths, that are, that we're supposed to believe, and how do we get to the truth of so much of what's going on, and especially when we're told lies, but what is truth? How do we find that out? And we remember that Jesus said to his disciples, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." And so Jesus says, I am speaking truth. I am speaking from God. I am speaking for God. I am speaking what God would have me speak, and what God would have me speak are true things for you and for me. So think about, when Jesus says you are forgiven, that's truth. And so many things that, that we can look at and wonder about in the Bible, but when we listen to Jesus' words, and Jesus says, "I am truth," we can trust the words of Jesus Christ. And Pilate has had, however lengthy a conversation, and he goes out to the Jews, to the people again. And again, when John says the Jews, it's more the religious leaders. But, if they didn't enter into his courtyard or his headquarters, so maybe they could be in the courtyard, but not in the headquarters in the building. Picky details. But Pilate says, "I find no case against him." My conversation with this man doesn't show me anything that would show that he is guilty of anything, especially of anything deserving death. And he said, "You have a custom. Can I release this man for you? This is your custom, that I would release one prisoner." And of course, we know what the answer is. It says, "They shout in reply, 'Not this man, but Barabbas.'" And so in John's gospel, they are ready to request Barabbas to be released. They've already thought about, well, what might Pilate do? This is thought out. This is planned. This is no accident that Jesus is arrested, put on trial, and that leads to the crucifixion. They've worked long and hard, these religious leaders have, to make sure that Jesus will be no threat to them. Jesus is no threat to us either. Jesus is a promise to us, promise from God, that what Jesus tells us, as I mentioned, is truth. God loves us. God forgives us. God has a place for us. That's the truth from God himself.